Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In this video, I'll be continuing on the second part of the slides, which is related to introduction to software engineering. We have covered the first part during the class, and the remaining of the content, I'll prepare it in terms of a video so that you can view it before coming to the class. Alright, I think we have covered on what is software engineering is, right? The word software and also engineering. When it comes to engineering, it means that we have to follow a set of systematic processes in order to execute the task given to us. In our case, developing software. And then in the following slides and video, we'll be covering on um, different types. So I think we covered this previously, different types of software available, okay, and common techniques whenever you develop a software, and the following part is related to ethics and professional issues that we need to consider if we are working in the software engineering the software. Right. So I've mentioned just now that in this content related to introduction to software engineering, we're covering on the ethics. Okay, why we need to know the ethics is because software engineer is the one that built the software, right? Along the way, at the back of the software engineer's mind, you need to know what are the ethics that you need to follow. Okay, when we talk about ethics, it's not about only on the technical aspect, like how good the software engineer is in mastering certain development processes and programming skills. Okay, you need to also look at the soft side of the software engineer. Software engineer must behave in an honest and ethical, responsible way, right? Because because this is actually a professional domain. Okay, you need to be honest because when you are developing system, sometimes because you are running out of time, you are supposed to finish certain tasks, but because you are running out of time, you claim that you have finished all, but you have not. Okay, and sometimes this ethical behavior is also related to some issue in the law, related to law, because when you are developing a system, the system will be used by user. Okay, sometimes due to the mistakes which is done by the software engineer, it cause harm to the user, so the user can actually sue the uh, software company. So that's why we have to be honest and have to work ethically. Okay, and that's why in software engineering there are a lots of processes that ready and systematically proposed that can be followed by the software engineer. So whenever we follow that processes, so inshallah, the task is actually done in a complete and ethical manner. All right. So this is some of the defined ethical principles. I think this is from, if I'm not mistaken, this is from ACM or IEEE, where they have listed down what are the ethics uh, need to be followed by software engineer. Okay, so they have defined it like this, in terms of public ethics of software engineer, uh, relate to the client and employer. All right, let's look at the first one in terms of the public perspective. Okay, um, when it comes to public, software engineers should act consistently with the public interest. So, because we in a software engineering, we are actually following sets of processes. So if you are following the set of processes, so inshallah we can consistently produce the work. Okay, and then from the perspective of client and employer, software engineers should act in a manner that is in the best interest of the client and employer. Right, so of course, if you are given a task to develop a software, so we need to actually meet the client requirement and also following what is the employer required from you. Okay, I think maybe in general that applies to different career as well. Okay, um, and also in terms of product, okay, the software engineer should be able to ensure that the product and related modification meet the highest professional standard as possible, meaning that you do the task which is supposed to be done. So maybe I've mentioned just now, because you're running out of time, you claim that it is already been done, but it's not. Okay, in terms of judgment, software engineers shall maintain integrity and independence in their professional judgment. Okay, maybe sometimes the client wants a function which is against, maybe they want it slightly a different way compared to what the normal practice is. Okay, so you need to actually you can actually discuss with the user, see whether they agree to change it according to the developer way or software engineer way. But if they claim or they want it that way, so you need to actually follow it. And then sometimes when you are developing the system, basically part of the processes required by the customer. So you cannot reveal that information to the competitor of that customer. Okay, you need to maintain the integrity. So you don't go and talk about it over coffee with your friends who's actually working in developing the system for the competitor of your customer. So you don't do that. Okay, so you just keep it and work professionally. Okay, in terms of the management, okay, software engineer managers and leaders shall subscribe to promote an ethical approach to the management. So also in the management of the software engineers and software development, so it encourage even the management to be following ethical approach. Right, in terms of profession, software engineers shall advance the integrity and reputation of the professional consistent with the public interest. Um, so we need to be preserving the integrity so that the reputation for the rest of the software engineers is actually is at a very good condition. Okay, you don't actually one software engineer is not following ethics and the rest will be penalized for it. No, we don't want that to happen. And in terms of the colleagues, in terms of the friends in the software engineer shall be fair and supportive of their colleagues. So that's why in the software engineer uh, community, they keep on sharing best practices, okay, so that everybody are actually following a very professional and effective kind of working product and working process. And in terms of the software engineer, they should participate in lifelong learning. So the software engineer should be actually always gain new knowledge about the practices in the software engineering. Okay, so that it's they keep on updating their knowledge and shall promote an ethical approach to the practices of the profession. At the same time, not only that they gain more knowledge, technical skill on their part, but also practices ethical approach in conducting their job. Okay, some of the issues of the professional responsibility I've mentioned just now along the way during the ethical, you are performing things in the very ethical way. You need to preserve the confidentiality of the what is uh, in the company and also of the client. So you don't actually talk about the client outside, okay, revealing their processes and all those. In terms of the competence, engineers should not misrepresenting their level of competence. So you don't overclaim your skills. you claim that you can do you are good at certain technology, but you are not. Okay. Thirdly, intellectual property rights. Okay. So engineers should be aware and careful of the local law governing the intellectual property uh, to ensure that intellectual property of the client and the employer is protected. Okay, let's say you get the idea of developing that software from your client. Okay, so that original idea is from the client, not from you. So you don't actually create similar system, or maybe along the way the client have a new algorithm related to AI, for example, and your job as a software engineer is to develop it. So the idea of that AI method is actually from the client, so you cannot actually store it, you cannot steal it from the client. Okay, so that is related to intellectual property. The idea, you cannot take the idea from your company or from the client. For example, maybe because you disagree with your bosses, you left the company and you take all the idea of that company to develop your own in a new company. So um, that is very unethical. And then related to computer misuse. Okay, so because sometimes you are working using the company's computer, right? So you don't do any like hacking kind of things. You put some software, hacking software in the company's hardware or computer or the server to extract information out. Okay, right? So those are very